the issue of identifications. Years ago, I don't think that, prosecutors believed in the concept of false confessions, right? There were confessions, obviously, if someone had been, beaten up at the precinct, the detective was beating them up, maybe, but just the thought that someone would confess to a crime that they didn't commit for the various reasons now that we know that they did. And so we look at these cases, more comprehensively than simply we have an identification or we have a confession. We are looking to see whether or not the pieces of the investigation actually make sense. We were too good and first of all, we're coming from Brooklyn, right? So in Brooklyn, I grew up in East New York in the 90s. My neighborhood had 126 people killed in the 90s, and Brooklyn had over 800 people were murdered in Brooklyn. And so jurors in the courthouses and attorneys and DAs were all overwhelmed, and I think jurors wanted to hold people accountable. And so there were a lot of errors made, there was a lot of shortcuts that were done because the volume of cases. It's not an excuse, but it's definitely understanding the time period from which we were coming out of. Today, one of the things, for example, in my office is we often will not proceed with an identification case unless there's other evidence that supports that, and even if it's a high-profile case. And also, the thought that, in order to do this work, that the person has to be an angel, that the person who's been convicted of this, whatever crime you're looking at, that they didn't commit other crimes in their life. I think too often prosecutors, they stop. They're not as inquisitive. They say, well, look at this person's, record. They've done this, they've done other crimes before. The fact that we're looking at these cases now and really saying, do we believe by a moral certainty that this person is responsible? Does the evidence lay it out? And not just be so good at our jobs as, trying to figure out ways to explain major holes and deficiency in cases. That was the thing. When you look at a lot of these cases, we had a lot of clever lawyers who made a lot of clever arguments to jurors who were looking to hold people accountable for, these terrible crimes. And we have to step back and we have to make sure that the prosecutors of today really understand it's about getting it right. It's not about getting that conviction. There's no clearer way for me to do that than to say, in some cases, the holes in the case, really suggest innocence, and so we shouldn't even proceed.